facebook.com/DZRJ810AM or on YouTube, channel DZRJ810AM, Radio Bandido.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.
Hi, I'm Nicole Jacinto. Join us on Healthline with Makati Med as we discuss the latest health and medical topics with doctors from Makati Med. For a healthier and uplifting lifestyle, tune into Healthline with Makati Med on DZRJ 810 AM, Radio Bandido TV. You've got questions, we've got answers.
Watch and listen to Healthline with Makati Med, Mondays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
You're about to experience Healthline, a show where doctors from Makati Med interact with you for a healthy, uplifting lifestyle. Moderated by Nicole Jacinto. You've got questions, we've got answers. So welcome to Healthline.
Hi everybody and welcome to Healthline with Makati Med. I'm your host Nicole Jacinto. I'm here with Dr. 𝗛𝗲𝗁, an emergency medicine specialist. So I guess we'd often see you in the ER, doc. What do I call you? Dr. 𝗛𝗲𝗁? Any other nicknames like Queen,
that's fine.
Majesty? No? Okay. We're Dr.
No,
𝗛𝗲𝗁.
I could settle for that.
You can settle for that. Okay. Welcome to the show. And today, folks, we're going to talk about emergency disaster resilience in
That's the whole gamut from
Mhm.
being prepared to responding to being able to bounce back after the crisis. So when you talk about resilience, you have to, in your mind, be ready and to anticipate what could possibly happen. And this is where all the what ifs come in. So what if this happens? Am I ready for that? What if that happens? Am I ready for that? What do I do if any of these things should happen? And when you have that in mind already, then you start to bring things together and you let's say prepare your go bag, or you get your medications together and you get your documents together and all that. So it's really everything that will tide you over should something happen. And we like to say it's being prepared. Either you're on your own, or you figure that you're going to be on your own, that you will have no one to turn to because everybody will be in crisis when something like that happens. So you just have to be ready for that. And then after that, when the crisis has actually passed, then you think about how to get back to normal, going back to your home. So, seeing if there's anything to go back home to for some people. And all that.
So, doctor, when we talk about this, it's not just like it kind of encompasses like your very personal or day-to-day things like medication or your routines, or should something happen to you. I mean, that's kind of, you start thinking about it that way and assuming that you can get to the ER in a certain amount of period, maybe just like shove the traffic out of the way, but is this is also maybe perhaps in a bigger sense, like if there is recently we've had typhoons, perhaps sometimes you get earthquakes or just buildings, knock on wood, buildings collapsing or things like that, or like accidents that pile up. There have been a lot of accidents where cars pile up on the road. And doctor, when you are in the ER and you can define it if you'd like to take it from a natural disaster perspective, let's say, or earthquakes, because we are in the ring of fire. It's in the ring of fire. What are the most common health emergencies you see when you're there, like when people start getting there or patients start getting to you? Or are there even cases where like somebody's brought in from and no, if they're in the room, then they're handled there, right? Or how does that work? Okay.
So you mean the patients are actually in the ER?
Yes, if they're in the ER, like let's say you start getting patients already in the ER, we're lucky enough to get there during the disaster or, right after. And perhaps there were patients who were there right before it happened. See where my mind goes. It's thinking of all the possibilities already. What are the most common emergencies that you usually see?
Well, for something like an earthquake, of course, you would expect to see trauma,
Mhm.
different kinds of trauma injuries. Because something might have fallen on them.
Mhm.
People tend not to, especially when they're at home or sometimes even in the office. Let's say bookshelves may not be anchored properly. You could have stuff piled up on tables
Yes.
and cabinets and shelves and things like that would fall on you
Mhm.
um, if they're not anchored, you
Mhm.
know.
Yes.
So you don't really often think about it. Like when you're at the office, you just take for granted that things are where they are.
Mhm.
And when the earthquake hits, then they start toppling down and hitting people. Or if you have a building collapse, you'll have debris flying around, you'll have stones and rocks falling on you. So that would be probably the most pressing concern that we would have,
Mhm.
anticipating people coming in with a lot of trauma.
Mhm.
So we have a trauma response system, a disaster response system within the ER already. So if we have a lot of patients coming in and we anticipate a lot of patients coming in,
Mhm.
then we check, we look already, how much space do I have? Where am I going to move people to? If there are patients inside the ER, we kind of shuffle them around and
Mhm.
create an area for all the trauma victims that are coming in. Sometimes, like many years ago, I remember I was on duty when there was an earthquake.
Yes.
And since we're in the midst of Makati, nobody came in injured, really, but
Yes.
a lot of it was hysterics
Yes.
because, uh,
Anxiety.
yeah,
Mhm.
because there's so many high-rise buildings, and when you're on the higher floors, the
Mhm.
buildings really sway,
Yes.
and then you can't get into the elevator, and you
Mhm.
have to take the stairs
Yes.
down after the earthquake has stopped, and so you get a lot of jittery people and hysterical people and things like that. So we just kind of put them all together in one place so
Mhm.
that it's easy for us to attend to them, and the normal things like registering the patient and
Yes.
all that will come later.
We'll come later. Yes.
Yeah, will
I
come
mean,
later, so we get to see them right away.
if this happened to me in 1990 or 1991, I think I was one of those hysterical people, but I didn't make, I mean, I was just hysterical outside the house. Like, then I fainted. I actually fainted. So, I mean, that can happen. And I'm sure also when you're there, you're thinking of, I mean, you get them all together and then you check them out. And some may have injuries, if they, even if it's just scrapes and the others, I mean, if it's hysterics or anxiety, I mean, I'm sure start like checking them for their blood pressure.
That's
Do you
true.
have categories of like, this person is actually at risk of getting
Certainly.
a heart attack right now? And does
Mhm.
it depend on the age or how they look, their pallor? Or in general, when it's like that, do you start asking them, like, do you have any heart problems? I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of those. Yes, okay. So this is like you said you have a trauma response. Well, you have a protocol for it, and that's on top of the triage that usually goes on in an ER.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the triage kind of changes a bit um, when you have mass casualty incidents, then the triage changes a bit. Because
Mm-hmm.
we're very specific. We use what's called, to be technical, an ESI, Emergency Severity Index,
Mm-hmm.
which is a 5-tier system
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis. I mean, this
Yeah.
is how our ER is run.
Mm-hmm.
But in the event of a mass casualty incident, we just cut it down to 3. So
Mm-hmm.
the walking wounded,
Yes.
the critical and the non-critical, the less critical.
Yes.
So we respond to them accordingly. We will triage them more quickly that way.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have to get to as many people as you can on time. So this idea, like, if for the audience who's listening, that you have that, if you are injured and you think going to the ER, you'll maybe wait 3 hours. I mean, you might, but just go anyway if you are actually injured, or if you have any doubts, no. And then, doctor, I mean, what you mentioned a go bag earlier. Is this go bag is this go bag let's say there are people who, well, I nerd. So I used to have go bags, and like, um actually, no, my family is a bit more health conscious in that sense, but I used to have a bunch of go bags lying around. Of course, it has to be a bunch because wherever you are in the house up there or in the car, and
Yeah.
then 3 years later, you're like, oh, that's where my shirt went. Okay, what should be in a go bag in case of emergencies? What should be in, and is it a go bag per family or per person, or I mean, I would
Well, you
say
can have both. You should actually be ready for both. So if you live alone, then you would have a go bag for yourself. But if you're part of a family, you would have your go bag and then general a general one kit for the rest of the family. That the food, the water, especially
water.
supply can be very iffy when there's a disaster. You may not always have clean water. You may not always have access to clean water, and it's of course very important to be able to drink and get enough water. You should have your own personal medications. So you would have general medications for, let's say, fever, pain, paracetamol, that kind of stuff, or paracetamol or ibuprofen. You would have an antihistamine. What else? Antidiarrheals, maybe, rehydrating tablets, the general medications that you would want to have for just in case should all be there. But on top of that, make sure that if you're on any maintenance medication, so you always have a good supply. Asthmatics, for instance, they have inhalers, and sometimes they let their inhalers run low
Yeah.
or run out before they buy one. But the thing is, if you've always, either if you have at the top of your mind the possibility of an emergency or a disaster happening, then you wouldn't want to let your medications run low. So you should always have a good supply, or refill your medications before they run out.
Yes.
So you should have, together with your.
Hello. Hi, doctor. Hold on for just a minute. Hi, folks. Hold on. Okay, hi, folks. Sorry, we just had a little bit of technical. You know how the signal is in the Philippines. And if you're abroad, please just, still come to the Philippines for your medical treatment with doctors like with doctor here and other doctors from Makati Med. But doctor, okay, you were saying that you have a go bag, you should have the basics in it. Maybe things for fever, pain, antihistamines.
Antidiarrheal, something for cough and cold. Your general medications plus your own personal medications. So if you're like hypertensive or diabetic, then you should always have enough supply of whatever it is you take on a regular basis, because you can't say, you don't know when you're going to be able to
Yes.
get a supply of meds again. So
Yeah.
always have enough. And keep your prescriptions with you and medical records.
Okay. No, I mean,
you should have a document folder with
Yeah.
all the important stuff. Hang on a second. Excuse me.
okay. So, So, doctor, with everything you were saying that should be in your go bag, that is like if you sat down at a lunch or dinner with my family members and some friends, it would be like, oh, we already have it in our bag.
Oh,
So like some of us have big bags.
puppies everywhere.
Yes, I mean, and also as you mentioned earlier, talking about if you have asthma and you know you use your inhaler a lot, or don't
Yes.
your inhaler expire, because like some people don't need it all the time, but you do a round of your meds and check what's expired, at least every year, and you put that there. And for people who, let's say, already need some care, or who have other chronic illnesses that require, let's say, a caregiver or someone else, they're often like they're most prepared. And I'm not telling people to hoard medicine, no, but she should probably have some extra and be prepared.
Yeah, just a few days worth.
Mhm.
Maybe 3 days worth should be good for the standard medications. Maybe 3 days would be good enough, because you're keeping these meds in anticipation of.
Yes.
Whereas your maintenance, you should have a better supply, be at least a week or 2 weeks supply with you.
Doctor, I mentioned earlier, like some people who may need care, no? How can individuals or patients with mobility issues or disabilities, or let's say older patients who need extra
Yeah.
care, who can't move as fast?
Can't move quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can they be
Well,
more-
it's good to have aids, mobility aids, like canes, wheelchairs, because if they already have issues like that, then it's likely that they would have a walker, a cane, or a wheelchair available for them. And if within the house you don't really need
Mhm.
a wheelchair to get around within the house, then keep your wheelchair by the front door. So
Mhm.
that's your getaway.
Mhm.
Um, I guess people with mobility issues would probably have a caregiver or two, a companion at
Yeah.
least with them, who could
Okay.
assist them in
Yeah.
escaping the house if it's needed.
Mhm.
Um, it's also good to work with your neighbors. So if you live in a condo, then it's nice to know your neighbors and kind of look out for each other.
Yeah.
So and even if you're not in a condo, if you live in a in
Mhm.
a row of houses, if you have neighbors, then s- maybe once in a while the conversation will crop up, and what if this happens, what if that happens,
Mhm.
then you or your relatives could perhaps speak to them already and say, hey, in case anything happens, here's my number,
Mhm.
please help my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, whoever it is, because they're handicapped. Can you look out for them? And I will do the same for you if
That's a great way
the
to.
need arises.
Yeah.
And it's really being just neighborly, and how Filipinos are. They're so bayanihan. They'll really extend the hand.
That's true. When there is a disaster, there is the bayanihan mentality really comes in. I'm wondering what happens sometimes when there's no disaster, because sometimes neighbors stare at each other. And I'm like, what is this? Is this a
Because there's no disaster.
there's a chismis thing going
Yeah.
on. So yeah, maybe we can stop gossiping about each other and talk more about these things, not to scare each other, but bring back that really like live by that bayanihan spirit, especially in light of the things that we went through this period where there was flooding even in Metro Manila, and I'm sure I'm going to hear you people have seen it in the news a lot, and they were being neighborly in a different manner. A lot of people help people, but the swimming and stuff, they were also enjoying that swimming in the flood waters. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing about floodwaters. There's a
Yeah.
lot you could pick up leptospirosis, and then, when typhoons hit and the
Mhm.
streets get flooded, you could be exposed to the urine of rodents
Mhm.
and pick up leptospirosis. So we do give uh, prescription medications, generally doxycycline, for those who are exposed to floods.
And doctor, maybe that's just something like coming from you. It it would really make more of an impact than coming from someone like me who's not a non-medical professional, where we say do not step there, or try to wear shoes if you can, or like, yeah, don't go swimming there. I know, when I was a kid, when it rained, or the first rain after the summer, we
Oh,
now
yeah.
in the rain, but that's like rain. It's rain, and then there's acid rain. But apart from that, the flood waters, you mentioned it, you could really get leptospirosis or
Yes.
some other thing. And it becomes like a sport, but it highlights our other problems, like we don't have a proper flood plan and all of that. And just sometimes maybe the rain is too much, but I'm glad that it came from you, that you can get sick, and then
Yes.
you're swimming there, then you like open your mouth like, oh no, like. So what other what when somebody is it let's say somebody's been swimming in the floodwaters or had to wade through them, if they get admitted into your ER, do you ask them that question? Or I mean, and then do you immediately or do you, and then how does the onset of leptospirosis come on? Do you see it immediately? Is there an immediate
Yes,
effect?
within the next couple of days, they'll start to develop fevers, joint pains, body pains, and that progresses quickly.
Okay,
So
so you
we
got that ready.
yeah, we like to start the on medication immediately, even if they're not manifesting any symptoms. We'll prescribe medications for them and give them the warning signs. Well, for those that do develop a fever, then we have to confine them.
Okay. All right. So just reminding you guys out there, because the rainy season's not over yet. And hopefully it's we're not trying to kill your fun here. I mean, it's just that these things exist, they happen, people have been affected, and here's an ER doctor telling you that they exist. Boy, I know some people who'll be cheering there because they've been warning their friends not to don't go into the water.
Yeah, wading in flood waters is a different thing from, playing in the rain.
Yes, it's different. Um, and then of course when you're like swimming for fun, you don't realize you're opening your mouth, and ugh.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really not clean. I mean, our streets are
Guilty.
full of trash, and the flood water carries all of that with it. So, you develop, apart from leptospirosis, you develop gastroenteritis
Hmm.
and other illnesses. So,
Dami pa, even just
respiratory illnesses from, the weather, the cold, really
Mhm.
from the chill, you could develop respiratory illnesses. So, uh, try
Yeah,
to keep dry. I know, it's easier said than done because
yeah,
people that have to wait through
you do.
flood waters. Most of them aren't doing it because they want to.
Yes. I'm talking about the ones who are jumping off the bridge and the overpass and the flooded street,
Yeah.
flooded highway that's an underpass, and doing acrobatics, and then swimming and having fun. That's what I'm talking about. Hindi
And
naman
they probably have
Hmm.
a higher resistance already from so much exposure.
Yes. Okay. And then doctor, what some people are lucky enough to be brought to evacuation centers, not just in the metro, but in provinces, and all of that, or they're or let's say, your good neighbor. Sometimes people will crowd in one space, right? Because mas mataas yung bahay ko. Their
Yes.
houses are higher, or it's better here. By the way, I still have electricity and we're not getting electrocuted. We just don't stay in the first floor because the water comes into the houses too. Not
Yeah.
everywhere, but it does. And then, if there's a group of, well, I guess it's two sort of questions. A group of people together, and some of them have waded through the floodwaters, or they have different conditions. Because at that point, people don't choose. They say yes, come in, even if you have a cold, a
Yes, of
cough, or
course.
whatever, or evacuate. And then the others, the evacuation centers, or places where people congregate, and they're told you at least have some shelter here, and we'll be giving you food. How do diseases like secondary naman to secondary, like there are dangers also. What about the spread of diseases in these areas or in these situations?
Well, of course, there's always that possibility because of proximity. So you have people who come in with respiratory illnesses, and they're all crowded together. They're cramped in one space. Inevitably, you will have respiratory diseases, viruses running around. So keep mask, face always as much as possible. Practice good hand hygiene, so have hand sanitizers. Use them, especially before you touch your face, before meals. Clean surfaces after yourself. Wear mask so that you're not inhaling other people's viruses. Boil your water if you can. If you have water, those portable water filtration systems, or if you can boil water, then always boil your drinking water. Stay away from ice that's not properly the ice that's not been purified.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ice that's made from tap water is generally not really safe because it isn't really potable.
Yeah.
So that for children, usually what they do is they start immunizing kids against measles because our immunization rate isn't really very good anymore. So if you have a lot of children together, and since measles starts as a respiratory illness, then that's very easily transmitted to other children. That's why they do measles vaccinations at evacuation centers during epidemics. I'm sorry, during disaster times.
Yes.
To prevent the spread of these highly contagious illnesses.
Doctor, it just came to mind during the pandemic. Wow, that was really such a time when, and it still has its effects on us. I mean, it certainly does on me. How I think about things, how I react to them, and I'm just so glad we didn't have too many disasters, one on top of the other, natural or otherwise, during the pandemic. Because wow, that would have been just, I don't know, very
Yes.
difficult to recover from, because you mentioned immunization. And so apparently now, so if you're at an evacuation center, someone who is, and they say they want to immunize the kids here, that is being done now. So it's not something.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That is a program of the DOH, the Department of Health does that. I remember during Typhoon Yolanda,
Yeah.
Thailand, yes, we brought teams to Tacloban for that, and we came in 2 weeks after the typhoon had hit, and we were still seeing a lot of patients. There were areas where there were patients there were people who had never even seen a doctor before, in their entire lives, sort of thing. But the DOH came in with their teams, and they had designated centers. So our second team helped out already with the measles immunization process.
Okay. So, doctor, the parents who are taking care of, well, their children, or maybe even other people's children, no? Maybe you're an adult responsible for children. Aside from keeping in mind that, yeah, you do vaccinate in evacuation center, so it's not an unusual thing. But of course, they can always ask questions like, "What kind of vaccine is this?" And what else should they keep in mind when it comes to taking care of children? How do you define children? Like from age what to what? Because I'm still a child, but I don't think I fit your definition of children. And this is
0 to 18.
Okay, 0 to
0
8.
to 18.
0 to 18. Okay, so
That's 18 years and 364 days.
wow. It's been 18 years and 364 days.
Yeah, so
And you're still under my roof. Sinead O'Connor and Prince in that song. So what else should the adults responsible for these children keep in mind in situations like an evacuation center, or maybe even maybe it's a community hall that that
Yes,
it
yes.
happens, no? Barangay hall, or people congregate and they're stuck there. So
And for children, you should have toys, the favorite toys of the child. Their security blanket or security stuffed toy
so
that you should have that because it helps the child, it helps comfort the child. Then you can have toys if you can, at least one toy that they can play with to keep them preoccupied when you're busy doing other things. You can have books. You can, train the older children to take care of the younger children, to play with them, look after them at least. If the younger children are playing together, then you can have the older children looking after them and making sure that everybody's safe, inside together and safe.
so
Things like that. If you have infants, then you should have enough formula. If you're no longer able to breastfeed, at least they will have some kind of nutrition.
so
And
boys, sorry, go ahead, doctor.
sorry, and the other things that you need, disposable diapers and things like that.
Yeah. So maybe some of these things, like even thinking of toys, should go in the go bag too. If
Yes.
yeah, that's great. And now I'm thinking of my dogs. Oh my God, where is their go bag? Okay, yeah, because they also like to play in their food, and you do have to prepare these
Yes.
things. I I have a confession to make. I don't have all the papers together anymore, like how I used to, like all the the folder and all of that. I don't quite have it together, but thank you for reminding me and reminding others, because I think we should all get to that. Our go bags, our preparedness, and it's also like I guess recent events have reminded us it's quite timely that we're talking about this. Go ahead, doctor.
Well, you're right. Every time you hear of a disaster like an earthquake, and the earthquakes are happening one after the other. It's not really a remote possibility anymore. It's like you have to bear in mind that it could happen here. Like you said, we live in the Pacific Ring of Fire, and we're prone to all sorts of disasters. You name it, we'll have it. So it's not just a possibility, it's really knowing that it's going to happen one day. You just don't know when it will be. So if you bear that in mind, then you make an effort to prepare everything. Put everything in a water sealed, Ziploc bag.
Yes.
So, and keep all your papers together, and then always have extra, flashlights, batteries, hand cranked radio. Those old hand cranked radios will probably work best when the lights go out.
Yes.
When there's no electricity and you
You know
can't
what?
charge the phones.
I was just thinking of we use our cell phones so much and our gadgets these days, but um if there's no electricity for a few days, everyone runs into the same problem. You our most of our phones now they're not the kind where you can take out the batteries. They have the batteries built in. And
Yes.
I remember before, because I was still such a nerd and on top of my game, I would like charge extra battery so that I have another battery pack, but
Yes.
I can't really do that. I mean, you can have a power bank, I guess, but
But that will eventually run out as well.
yes, exactly.
Unless you have a solar power bank.
We should just get those big satellite phones. Like, hello. Even the walkie-talkies will run. So let's just get those satellite phones. It makes you think of these things. But as an just curious, as an emergency medicine specialist, is your mind also always on this, or do you just get things ready and then you relax? There's that moment where you are one of those people who can handle what comes your way.
Well, that's our training.
Right. I have I tend to get a little, people say it's a bunch of people say it's exaggerated, but then again, meet the rest of the family, and and then they say no, it's a bit maybe I don't know, I get a bit basically I get a bit obsessive about it, but then not all the time. It's not there all the time, as you can tell. I'm remiss now with my paperwork on everybody. But there is, if I think if you're prepared, doctor, and like how you're telling us to be prepared, there is also a moment where there are people who can think when the crisis is happening, or I find that even though I'm not a doctor and not trained for it, there are a few people like me who like, in this situation, this is happening right now, you do this, you do that, you do that. And if I think, I guess maybe I'm just saying to amateurs out there like me, or non-medical professionals, that you find those qualities in some of the members of your family, or maybe yourself or your friends, and some of your neighbors. So just to add to what you were saying about having good communication with your neighbors, and you take care of my parents, I'll take care of yours, exchanging numbers. You you might find that if you're more prepared, you can just also not be so extremely exhausted and stressed out when, or should it happen. You can kind of make the decisions, not because you don't care, or not because you're totally compartmentalizing, but because you're a bit more prepared. I don't know.
Yes, certainly. Yes, if you're prepared, then that's a whole load off your mind, because if you're prepared, then these are the things that you don't have to think of anymore. So you're a step ahead. You're a step ahead of the game, because you've got everything that you need. So you don't have to think about the here and now. You're starting to think forward again. So what happens next? What do we do next? Where do we go next? And things like that, because you've got this right now solved already. You've got food, you've got shelter, you've got water, you have batteries and all that. You've got your papers, your documents, etc. So what have you got to worry about? I mean, if you have that ready, then that's one less load off your mind. You're able to think of other things, you know.
Okay. And then, doctor, when it comes to, since I asked about the children, what about the elderly? What should we remember with special considerations towards senior citizens? And of course, you do tend to get sicker as you get older, or maybe you're chronic. I mean,
Health
maybe you've
issues.
always had an illness, but you're a bit weaker, and perhaps also for persons with disabilities. Um, what can you tell us? I mean, how should we put our mindset to it, even if we don't exactly know them? Like, maybe you can give us people out there tips on, hey, you have to remember, not everyone is as has your strengths and your
Yes.
weaknesses. Okay.
Well, I guess it's being a little bit more sensitive to them, because they may not. It depends on the type of person you're dealing with. Some people will exaggerate everything. Other people will be reticent to share what they're feeling, because they don't want to be a burden. So I guess you have to just ask them how they're doing, if they're feeling any pain, because you need to look out for things like heart attacks and strokes, and they may not necessarily be
Able.
want to be a burden.
Yes, that's it. A lot of older people, they don't want to be a burden, so you should double check on them. Don't be impatient. That's just what I observe. And also, like, I just realized, how can you put well, if they have hearing aids, bring them, right?
Oh, definitely.
So the battery, if it's the kind you plug in, at some point it may run out. But it's also, when you can't hear that well, it can be very isolating.
Yes.
So they might not be joining into the conversation. So you might want to ask them, and pakiusap ko lang, wag niyo naman sigawan. Yung hindi nakakarinig ng mabuti. Kasi there's a way of speaking loudly, but not yung, that really bothers me. Anyway, I mean, it's so glad you mentioned that, doctor, that some may not want to they're not really sharing. And then it depends on the personality of the person also. But be and maybe some are complaining because they feel like they're never heard.
Yeah.
You know?
And some of them, we tend to pamper them too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so they begin to feel useless.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, if they're together, if there are several seniors together, you can keep the seniors together so they can entertain each other, or you can get them involved in, let's say, looking after the younger ones, diba? So it gives them a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging,
Mm-hmm.
and it elevates their sense of self-worth.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot they can do for you. And a lot of times I hear older people or seniors giving advice and they're like, "Da, da, 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 da," and then I'm like, what? And then they look it up on their phone. I'm like, guess what she said? But you weren't listening. Okay. And then, okay, doctor. So, okay. And if somebody gets injured, and the injury is, well, let's say they're, God, nako, no, they can't house. I'm so superstitious when it comes. I mean, I act in superstitious manner sometimes. Let's say but the knocking wood, I was referring to that. Let's say you think someone is having a heart attack, or they think they are, or there's other things going on, or someone gets injured during
Mhm.
an emergency situation or disaster, and what can you do in the meantime, like while you're waiting to get to the hospital? And this is also where I ask you what basic skills we should maybe have in general.
Yeah, it's always good to know how to do CPR and first aid. You actually could save a life if you knew how to do CPR. So if you have a community and everybody in the community knows how to do CPR, then the likelihood of somebody surviving from a heart attack or something like that, or from an arrest, is much higher, because then there are several people that can do good CPR that will help sustain you until you get to the hospital. So when you're more prepared, and you have certain skills like knowing how to do CPR, and first aid is really very easy. It's pressure and bandage for wounds, immobilizing a limb if you think it's broken, and then the rest of it is keeping a patient calm and comfortable and warm until they can get to the hospital. So, staying with the patient. And, when you have that skill set, then you feel confident, and that confidence transfers also to the people around you, because then the patient will feel reassured
Yeah.
that the person looking after him, that the person that's with him knows what he or she is doing. So, um, you transfer that confidence, and that it spreads. When you know what you're doing, then everybody calms down. It brings the crisis level down a
Yes.
couple of notches until
So,
you can get to the hospital.
and that's like, of course, the
The
CPR.
ambulance could get to you.
Yes, or the ambulance can get you. And then when the EMTs get there, you're like, oh my God. No, I'm just kidding. I've seen that happen though, and I can't blame people. The last time I was in the ER was very recently. It wasn't for myself, it was for someone else. And I was actually not feeling well myself. And I wasn't really very, I mean, physically I was there, but there still just really only able to latch on to the basics. And I think I asked the same question like maybe 30 times to the point where perhaps some medical professionals got really irritated at me, but that was my state at the time. I mean, um, so yeah, the more thank you for telling us, like, the CPR, the signs and this, and also, as you said, that confidence and that feeling of security. Because I've also been in the position personally. I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, where you're the one who's sick, and then you are just trying to stay conscious, and you can kind of maybe figure out what's going on with you, but you're not exactly sure. And then if other people are like screaming at each other at the same time, or they're even more nervous than you are, it doesn't help you feel better.
It's
And
true.
you're like, okay, I have to be the one to think and, make sure that this is like, make sure I get the something before I get unconscious. Become unconscious and tell them all my allergies, tell them my this, tell them what I'm feeling. So thank you for reminding us of that, doctor, because we do all have roles to play, and you know, they've never, I mean, at a time like this, and you did mention the earthquakes are happening and they've happened in other countries and there's tsunami warnings and all of that. In the midst of all this, can I ask you what role does emergency training in terms of, you've already mentioned CPR and the basics, and we do take them up on the show from time to time, and I'd be happy if we did more often and more, but it's kind of more in depth. But then people be like, "Ay, nako, Nicole, you're so makulit and you're getting obsessive about it again." But when it comes to emergency training, what do you think about disaster drills? Role do disaster drills play? And what does like basic life support mean? That's just a term I learned. When I think of life support, I think of machines, and I don't know if that means something else actually when it comes to
That's your basic ABCs: airway, breathing, and circulation. So
yeah.
that's knowing how to do CPR. So that's our basic life support.
So you check the airway, check if you're
Yeah, you check the
breathing.
airway, make sure the patient is breathing, check if the patient is breathing and if he has a pulse. And if not, then you start CPR.
Start compressions. What song do you
Yes, you
sing in
just
your mind?
sorry?
What song do you sing in your mind?
Live.
Staying alive. Yes, me too. I remember a doctor recently said, we have other songs. I'm like, okay, for the ones who are younger than me who don't know the song, staying alive,
Yeah.
you should learn that though. It's a good movie, good soundtrack, Bee Gees. Um, and then I remember the first time I was told that staying alive, I said, which part? The dun, 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 all these songs. Okay. So, okay. What do you think of drills though? Do they really help in
Yes,
our
they do. Because following the same logic, if you know how to do CPR, which is really something that you undergo training for and practice, disaster drills do the same thing. Like it tells you where to go in the event of whatever. In the event of an earthquake, it's duck, cover, and hold, and then you go down and you take the stairs. You don't take the elevators and things like that. And if you do it often enough, and we're required to do it yearly, right? That's supposed to be an annual thing. And here at the hospital, we do drills in the hospital because you never know if the hospital is going to suffer the same fate as all the other buildings. So we have to practice evacuation, where to go, what to bring, and all that. So it helps because then it becomes, when you do it often enough, then it becomes automatic and you're not forced to think. So it's like just like the go back. If you have
yeah.
the go back, you just grab it and go. So that's one less load off your mind. You don't have to think about, okay, what's happening? What do I have to do? Where are we supposed to go? Etc. Because you do it often enough.
I'm so glad. I just, for my own edification, I'm glad. I guess, to all the nerds out there like myself, that's probably like half of my family. And although sorry, didn't mean that. Although the other half is like, very not this way, and they're like, I whenever we choose a new office in a building, they were you going to the exit to count how many minutes it takes to walk down calmly, which of course would never happen. You'd be flying down the stairs, but still, things like that. And I guess you could practice this at home, right? just between you
Yes.
and your family, like where do we meet inside the oh, I don't care,
Yes.
small houses, what do we do, grab this, grab that, make sure it's ready, that kind of thing. So pasensya na kayo kung makulit ako, the people I live with, pero but I'm also not always at the top of my game. So we have to rely on each other. And so actually, this is like an apology also to the people that I nag all the time. And then, Doctor, okay, is there anything else you'd like to take up in terms of emergency resilience and anything else? As you said, you even practice in the hospital. I mean, because
Mhm.
it's a building, it's full of
Yes.
people.
Yes.
You're
And
like,
it's got patience.
yes, it has patience.
So it's even more difficult.
Sometimes when I'm confined or someone I know is confined in the hospital, I'm like, oh, I think these thoughts come to me like, where do we get them out of here? If like, am I
Mm.
strong enough to carry my loved one? And like, definitely, where's the stairs? I don't see the elevator. Of course, things like that. But I guess you also have it covered in your hospital. You know how to. I mean, you have a plan in place. That's good to know.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Okay, because I mean, I go, oh my God, and then what happens if this or that, or, so maybe I am too paranoid. I don't know.
Yeah, but well, I guess the paranoia serves its purpose because you're always thinking about it, so you have certain things already
In place.
in place and pat down. So when something actually happens, it becomes automatic,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, because you've already thought it through.
Yeah. Thoughts not cooperating that much these days, though. Okay. Well, doctor, is there anything else you'd like to say about emergency resilience?
um, well, we I guess basically that we have to be prepared. A disaster will strike sooner or later, one form or another. There's so many both natural and man-made disasters. You, you're bound to encounter one of them at least once in your lifetime. Certainly, in this country, more than once because typhoons are a regular thing. Um, be prepared. It's just that. Be prepared. Think about what you need to do, um, and how you can prepare for any inevitability.
Mhm.
Like for instance, with my children, I tell them if we, yeah, my children are grown. They go to work, and we're all over the place. But
Mhm.
if anything should happen and we can't get in touch with each other, we should meet at a certain point. And one way or another, we should meet up at a certain point. If you have to walk, fly, whatever. So,
Mhm.
so know that so that you're also not always worried
Yeah.
until you need to worry.
Mhm.
Diba?
Mhm.
If you're prepared, then you don't need to worry about certain things until you need to worry. So, um, I'm not saying you have to be a doomsday prepper. There
Yes.
are some people who take it to the extreme, but it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Um, get just think about what the possibilities are and realize that in the event of a disaster of a great magnitude, you're probably going to be on your own for at least the next 2 or 3 days, and that's what you have to prepare for and plan for that.
Because you have to wait for people to get to you, or will they get to you? And you have to go out and fend
Exactly.
for yourself
Yeah.
and fend for each other.
Mm-hmm.
You might meet people along the way. Speaking to you today has shamed me because I am not as prepared anymore, but I will, please.
It's it's not meant to shame you, but it's just to uh, stimulate you or remind you that there are things we should be you should be ready for because you don't know when it's going to happen, and it's always good to be prepared.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Is there anything else you'd like to say on the topic, and anyone you'd like to say hello to, perhaps?
That's okay.
Nobody?
We're, no,
Okay.
we're good. Mm-hmm.
Um, I would love to hang out with you, have coffee or something one of these days, Doctor. I'm putting you on the spot by saying it in public and on TV, radio, teleradio, Facebook.
Sure, as long as it's not here in the ER.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, you may see, as long as it's not someone I love, if I happen to end up there, I'll be like, hi, doc. I'll make a list of my allergies already for you. Allergic to the
That
smell.
helps.
Thank you. If I wore one of those cards, it would be like this long. All of things like they
Yes,
have.
there's a medical IDs.
Yeah, they're such a good idea. But mine would be like a whole sign. Okay. Thank you so much.
Placard.
Yes, a placard. Thank you for being on the program, and I hope that more people learn to be prepared without necessarily getting scared, and to those who I love and those who I depend on and who depend on me, who are watching right now, who are watching this show, think maybe, I don't want to be the only one knowing. Why did this become so personal? Emergencies, no? Kasi kakagaling lang sa ER ng, and for other people as well. Everybody work together. I don't want to be the only one in the. Well, I have a sister naman who's so it's okay. But I mean, the more people that know, so you're not fighting over it and having conflicting theories, and you get it like straight from the horse's mouth, like from a doctor like yourself on what you should do, what you should prepare for. Then there will be balance because it's hard to just depend on one person. Because what if that person even just faints or something for once? How would you know what to do? I guess that was my paranoid take on something. Thank you so much, doctor, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I hope it's been enlightening.
My God, yes, on a personal level, on an emotional level, on an intellectual level, spiritual level, and I'm sure it's been enlightening for our audiences as well, across all platforms that we broadcast in. Please do come back, Doctor, and talk about anything you'd like to talk about. You're a great guest. I really enjoyed your company today.
Thank you. It was fun being here.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, bye, folks. We'll see you again next week on Healthline with Makati Med.
Thank you for tuning in to Healthline with expert doctors from Makati Med, giving you the chance to interact, uplifting your lifestyle. Moderated by Nicole Jacinto. Tune in again next week for your weekly dose of Healthline.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of the station.